SLT Fibre and experience the power of fibre technology. Sri Lanka's only super fast internet connection. SLT Fibre. Call 1212 now.
Tonight, 3 months on, as Katwa Church reopens after Easter terror, more strong words from the Cardinal, blames political leadership for sweeping evidence under the carpet. Inadequate laws. Prime Minister pushes for new laws to prevent terrorism rising its head in Sri Lanka. An unsung hero. First-hand information from a truck driver who exposed the Sainda Maradu attack. All these stories and much more coming up on First at 9 this Sunday, the 21st of July 2019.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෙයානස් වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෙයානස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti marks cream.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Well, a very good evening and welcome to First at 9 on AdaDerana 24, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katrina Chan. The 3-month commemoration of the unforgettable Easter Sunday attacks, which claimed over 250 lives leaving Sri Lanka, as well as the entire world in mourning, falls today. St. Sebastian's Church in Katwa, that sustained the most damage, was reconsecrated today and opened for religious observances for the first time since the attack. Attending the Holy Mass, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, took aim at the country's leadership for allowing their negligence and political conflicts to pave the way for the heinous act of terror.
What would have been a festive Easter Sunday on the 21st April turned into an unforgettable nightmare woven into the tapestry of Sri Lankan history, shattering people's sense of peace and security. Explosions were set off at 8 locations, including 3 churches in Katwa, Kochikade and Batiklo, along with 3 high-end hotels in Colombo, claiming more than 250 lives. To date, 3 months have passed since that brutal terrorist attack which shook Sri Lanka to its core. Coinciding with the 3-month commemoration of the spate of terror attacks, St. Sebastian's Church in Katwa conducted its first Holy Mass after the tragedy under heavy security, reopening its doors for religious observances. Relatives of the deceased as well as those sustained injuries during the attack were present for the service.
ඔබ වහන්සේට සදා ප්‍රශංසාවත් මහිමයත් අත් වේවා.
It was conducted under the patronage of Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit.
This attack was launched to satisfy the needs of the international forces and to drag this country towards instability by exploiting a group of mice-old youngsters. Our leaders don't have a spine. This isn't the way they should work. We cannot allow foreign forces to interfere in our matters. Leaders should help us instead of discouraging us. They destroyed a solid intelligence unit. They did so to satisfy the United Nations, the Human Rights Council and the NGOs. No action was taken when they caught the extremists in Wanatavilua. Instead, they were released. They also released the culprits who vandalized the statues of Lord Buddha in Mawanella and shot the person who tipped them off. The political leadership swept all this under the carpet. Security Council meetings did not convene due to the conflict between the executive and the legislature in October. These leaders neglected the science and information they came across. As a result of adamant leaders who don't have policies, people lost life and limb. So it's time that we ask them to go home and mind their own business. Hand this over to somebody who is capable of doing it.
දැන් කාලේ ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා මේ ඔක්කොන්ටම කියන්න ගෙදර යන්න කියලා.
Following the Holy Mass, the Cardinal invoked blessings on the devotees. A A monument which carries the names of 115 people who were killed in the attack, built at the church premises, was also unveiled today. Meanwhile, the groundbreaking ceremony for a new Sunday school building was worked off today, with the foundation stone being laid by Cardinal Ranjit, along with Minister of Housing and Cultural Affairs Sajid Premadasa. The cemetery where the victims of the attack were laid to rest was also blessed by the Archbishop. Special masses were also conducted at the Kochikade Shrine and the Zion Church in Batticaloa.
A truck driver who was instrumental in exposing another terror plot masterminded by the very cadre who carried out the Easter Sunday attacks came forward to give us a first-hand account of his experience. Owing to his patriotic action, security forces managed to prevent unfathomable loss of lives and were able to minimize the damage caused by the attack in Saindamarudu. This is his story.
Before the attacks in Saindamarudu, which were carried out by a group led by Zahran Hashim's brother, security forces found more explosives hidden at two houses in Samanture and Nindavur after a truck driver working at a vehicle rental service tipped them off. These explosives were brought to Samanture from Negombo, and the terrorists had hired a truck on the 9th of April for the purpose.
I
apologized to the 5-6 people who were waiting for me for being late. They first started loading some barrels, then I asked him what was inside them. They replied saying it was sulfuric acid used to craft gold jewelry. They said they want to establish a factory, and I never asked where it was because my cab service had already informed me that Ampara was our destination. We loaded everything onto the truck, and there were also sacks weighing around 50 kilograms. When I asked what was in them, they said it was fertilizer for paddy. Then they said that we were to meet someone near a green-coloured mosque in Kalmuni. There was a person near the mosque wearing a helmet, a white long-sleeved shirt and a pair of blue denims. He asked me whether I knew where Saindamarudu was, and I said it was my first time in that part of the country. He then said it's only 9 kilometers away from Ampara, and we went there. All three of us then unloaded what was inside the truck at two large houses.
This truck driver, however, became suspicious of these events on the night of the Easter Sunday attacks.
It was said on the news that a Muslim was arrested in Nottiagama with ammonia in his vehicle. I then became suspicious that the sulfuric acid too might have been used to make bombs. Then an official from State Intelligence Service called me from Negombo, and I told him everything. He then replied saying they had only gathered 5% of the necessary information while I had 95% of it. He said the investigation would have come to a dead end in Negombo itself if it wasn't for my information. He also said I was going to save the lives of thousands.
The driver then led the security forces to the two houses in Samanture on the 26th of April.
All of us went to that house, and there were drones, a laptop, suicide vests and much more. I couldn't believe that I helped them unload all of it, believing they were simply sacks of fertilizer. Those officials said that the entire country would have been destroyed with all of those items. We also found a number of bags in the second house, which we thought had bombs in them, so we didn't even touch them.
It was owing to the information provided by this driver that suicide bombers of the Saindamarudu attack couldn't carry out their other planned attacks. It's because of this patriotic individual's actions that the suicide bombers were killed during a security operation in Saindamarudu on the 26th of April, with many lives saved. This driver, however, then had to leave his job because his life was under threat.
I'm scared for my life to take any more hires. I'm scared even when I'm at home. I received phone calls with threats leveled against my life after this. But I came forward to talk about my experience, even though my life was at risk. My children and wife are suffering now.
නෝන දුක් විඳිනවා.
Had he not acted on his suspicions and come forward to divulge what turned out to be vital information in unravelling significant part of a terror plot, we could well be mourning the death of many more. It is also easy to underestimate his commitment and sacrifice he made in this matter. Now it is up to the country to ensure that this man who came forward with information putting his life at risk along with his family is not forgotten and left to fend for himself. The entire nation owes him a debt of gratitude, and just as everyone else, he does not deserve to live in fear.
The visiting UN Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Freedom of Association and Peaceful Assembly, Clement Nyatilosi-Wool, commended Sri Lanka for the quick recovery made after attack on Easter Sunday, while also ensuring rule of law. The UN Special Rapporteur had made this remark when he met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs Tilak Marapana at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Thursday. During their discussion, Minister Tilak Marapana had observed that the freedom of assembly was not restricted in the country, even under emergency regulations, and highlighted that a number of protests and trade union action were even organized in the country. The Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Freedom of Association and Peaceful Assembly will remain in Sri Lanka as part of his official visit until the 26th of July. He is to meet with government officials from various sectors, representatives of civil society and trade unions, as well as with the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. He is also set to engage in visits to several areas in the northern, eastern and southern provinces of the island. The Special Rapporteur's preliminary findings will be disclosed on Friday prior to departing Sri Lanka. The final report of his country visit will be presented to the Human Rights Council at its 44th session in June 2020. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe once again goes on to blame the existing laws in the country as insufficient to counter extremist terrorism in the country. Therefore, he said Sri Lanka is looking at bringing new laws that streamline the entry process to the country. The Premier made his remarks at an event held in Matara this evening.
We cannot face the ISIS the same way we fought the LTTE. We have to think afresh. Firstly, we need new laws. Laws pertaining to terrorism were amended 15 times in England in the past 19 years. New laws are brought to address new situations. Similarly, the United States too amended their laws several times. Some say that existing laws are sufficient, but they aren't. We are now focusing on bringing in new laws. There are countries which only allow entry to a selected group, including diplomats and donors. We are focusing on introducing such laws.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa is of the view that war heroes of the country are facing an unfortunate situation despite their sacrifices for the freedom of the nation. He expressed these views following an event in Colombo yesterday. A book authored by journalist Sujit AdaDerana was launched under the patronage of opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday. The keynote address of the event was delivered by retired Major General Kamal Gunaratna.
We were to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the end of war on the 19th of May at 10:30 a.m. But unfortunately, 28 days prior to that, everything changed. Innocent lives were sacrificed so that Zahran could go to heaven. How could we possibly tolerate that when the freedom we achieved through such hard-fought victory was destroyed in just a day? We need good leadership in order to uplift this country from this mess.
Following the event, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa responded to questions raised by a journalist. Well, we will now cross over to a short commercial break, but make sure you stay tuned for more local news on the other side. Welcome back to the news. President Maithripala Sirisena says that if the country is to compete with other nations in this modern day and age, everyone must fulfill their responsibilities instead of putting the blame on politicians. Speaking in Colombo this morning, the president went on to say that more needs to be done to encourage students to enter the field of science and technology. President Maithripala Sirisena inaugurated the Shilpa Sena exposition, which seeks to promote science and technology among school students in Sri Lanka at the BMICH today.
We're planning to set up a fund that will encourage inventions targeting the export segment. Proposals as these usually take a very long time to materialize. We are aware that the President is unable to take decisions without cabinet approval. It is delays such as these that obstruct accelerated growth of the country. Only 30% of students in Sri Lanka get admissions to science faculties of universities. Who's at fault for this? It is educational experts who are at fault. Now we have the opportunity to compete with other countries, but we cannot put all the blame on our shortcomings on politicians. You all must fulfill your responsibilities in order to develop this country and to compete globally.
The United National Party has announced their intention to establish a broader political alliance with several other political parties in preparation for the presidential elections. Speaking to media following an event in Kurunagala last evening, General Secretary of the United National Party, Akhila Viraj Karivasam, said that the alliance will be signed on the 5th of August under the leadership of Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe.
The United National Party and the United National Front will be entering an alliance on the 5th of August targeting the presidential election. A number of parties, civil organizations and prominent political leaders have expressed their intention to join the alliance. The first step is to sign an agreement to create a broader political alliance with the United National Party and other political leaders of the UNF under the leadership of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
අපේ පක්ෂයේ නායක ගරු රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමාගේ ප්‍රධානත්වයෙන් අපේක්ෂකයා එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය.
The inclement weather situation in the country is easing to normalcy. The Disaster Management Centre said that over the next few days there will be improvement in the weather condition. However, the Meteorology Department announced that there will be fairly strong winds across the island over the next 24 hours.
The Disaster Management Centre issued warnings over fairly strong winds of up to 40 to 50 kilometers per hour over the provinces of Western, Southern, Central, Sabaragamuwa, Northwestern and North Central, as well as in the Trincomalee district. The DMC also requests the naval and fishing communities to refrain from venturing into the seas extending from Putlam to Matara via Colombo and Galle due to possible rough weather and increased wind speed of up to 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, the amber warnings issued by the National Building Research Organisation on the possibility of landslides in Ratnapura, Balanguda and Imbulpe divisional secretariats in the Ratnapura district, as well as Ambagamuwa, Kothmale and Nuwara divisional secretariats in the Nuwara district have still not been lifted.
Due to bad weather conditions since 18 July 2019, 11 districts were affected and 7,194 members in 1,909 families were affected. 1,395 houses were partially damaged and 16 houses were fully damaged. And also 42 small and medium enterprises were damaged. 171 members in 39 families in the safety centers. Today, the National Building Research Organisation issued landslide watch bulletin for Kegol, Nuwara, Ratnapura and Kandy district. And the Met Department says that the weather is becoming well. However, fishermen and naval communities have to be vigilant due to gusty wind.
Postal workers will once again engage in a trade union action for 24 hours from midnight today. Convener of the Joint Postal Trade Union Alliance said that a day's sick note campaign will be launched due to non-implementation of the agreements reached regarding the recruitment procedure of postal employees. General Secretary of the Postal and Telecommunication Officers Association meanwhile stated that they will have to resort to continuous strike action if authorities fail to provide solutions to their issues. With the latest revision to the composition of the liquid stock index of the Colombo Bourse, two insurance companies were included in the S&P/SL 20 index constituents. CEO of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Rajiva Bandaranaike, says that this signifies a positive sign as it demonstrates the ability of the insurance sector to engage in consistent profit generation. He said this at a bell-ringing ceremony recently. HMB Assurance PLC rang the opening bell at the Colombo Stock Exchange recently to mark its inclusion in the S&P/SL 20 index following the mid-year index review. The Colombo Stock Exchange announced changes in the S&P/SL 20 index constituents on the 21st of last month. According to the latest revision, Expo Lanka Holdings, HMB Assurance, Janashakti Insurance and Melster Corp were included in liquid composition. HMB Assurance was first listed on the Colombo Stock Exchange in 2003 and currently has a market capitalization of 5.8 billion rupees.
The index rebalance this year resulted in the inclusion of two insurance companies, and I believe that this is a positive sign for the insurance industry as it demonstrates the ability of companies in that sector to engage in consistent profit generation and offer liquidity. More importantly, a strong presence in the insurance industry among the listed stocks in the CSE offers investors the opportunity to engage in the success of that industry. The progress of HMB Assurance PLC in the stock market has also translated into advancement of the company and the company's shares since it was first listed in 2003 and the market capitalization was 300 million, and today, years later, it has grown to 5.9 billion.
In terms of market capitalization, we have beaten the market capitalization threshold. As of today, we have a 5.8 billion market capitalization, about 11 times more than the minimum threshold. And in terms of PAT and PBT targets, in terms of profitability, actually we are well above most insurance companies. In terms of PBT, we are at 1.7 billion, and in terms of PAT, we are at 2.7 billion. So basically, as a company, we are a strong outfit.
Meanwhile, market analysts expect moderate turnover levels at the Colombo Bourse over the course of next week with the reactivation of retail investors. During the end of the trading week, the All-Share Price Index and the S&P/SL 20 gained 2.61 and 5.13% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 2.9 billion rupees. We now have Dimantha Matthews from First Capital Holdings with your market forecasts for the next week.
Following the hefty gains in both the equity and bond market, we expect a bit of a slowdown in both the markets. With the heavy decline in yields in the bond market, we expect a bit of a profit taking, especially in the long end of the yield curve. However, the overall yield curve is likely to stay flat with marginal upward movement. Even in the stock market, we expect a bit of a profit taking. Taking a look into technical analysis, the relative strength index of the SPI is currently at overbought territory at around 87. Thereby, there could be a bit of a selling pressure in the mid-cap and blue-chip counters. Turnover levels are likely to remain moderate with the reactivation of the retail investors.
Services and export industry expert Ruhan Masakorala laments that Sri Lanka has lost its balance in foreign policy. Speaking to Indivariya Muatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, Masakorala said that too much of access to the island's infrastructure is granted to China, thereby neglecting the opportunities that can be derived through the association of other superpowers with Sri Lanka's development process.
Everyone's talking about the implications. China donates a massive vessel, and there is agreements with the USA, be it AXA or SOFA. That is, recently we signed a memorandum of understanding with India and Japan for the Colombo East Container Terminal. Are we doing this right?
I think we got it wrong a bit, starting with we lost our balance as a neutral country. End of the war, we've had probably less options to go to the West due to other reasons like human rights. As a result, we naturally went towards China. China gained in a lot of inroads into Sri Lanka's infrastructure, which we all know.
But is it bad to have China here?
We must have everybody here. We export all our exports to Europe and United States. China buys hardly anything. Our important clients are then Europe and USA in that sense for all our export products. As a global player, China has scale and ability to support infrastructure in the long term.
Does that mean we will have to go into these agreements that there is so much of media hype about?
1995, everybody knows there's an agreement on logistics for the US forces. Now it has come to renewal. So the US government has asked the Sri Lankan government, we would like to have these things included in this.
Will this hamper Sri Lanka's service industry,
well, if it didn't,
or the security?
If it didn't happen in 95 to now, it's 20, how many years? 20 years, nothing has happened.
But now there is increased interest of these superpowers in Sri Lanka.
Yes, it is. So after China's involvement more in Sri Lanka infrastructure, obviously the other side also has more interest. So the superpowers will negotiate with the governments to give them facilities and things like that. Now in this country today, the president still is the executive president. He remains the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He remains the defense minister. He remains the law and order minister. All the media should get together and ask, we want a press conference or a media conference with you. Please answer these questions. We are just delaying our economic processes and focusing on wrong things.
We will now cross over to a short commercial break. Britain's Finance Minister Philip Hammond confirmed today that he will resign on Wednesday this week before his expected sacking by the favourite to become Britain's next Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, takes office. Hammond announced that he will sit beside the Prime Minister on Wednesday for her final question as Prime Minister. He will officially hand over his resignation to Theresa May once the session is completed, but will time it before she resigns as Prime Minister. Hammond also said that he is confident that the UK Parliament does have a way of preventing a no-deal exit on the 31st of October without parliamentary consent. Iran urged Britain today to contain domestic political forces intent on escalating tensions between the two countries following Iran's seizure of a British-flagged oil tanker. Britain has called Iran's capture of the Stena Impero in the Gulf on Friday a hostile act and rejected Tehran's explanation that it seized the vessel because it had been involved in an accident. Iran's envoy to Britain, Hamid Badinjad, said on Twitter that the UK government should contain domestic political forces who want to escalate existing tensions, as it is quite dangerous and unwise at a sensitive time in the region. The UK's Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, meanwhile, has urged Iran to reverse the tanker's illegal seizure. Riot police have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at protesters in Hong Kong following a large pro-democracy rally in the city. Officers charged demonstrators who threw objects at police lines. The clashes came after marchers ignored a designated finish line, continuing on to China's several government offices. Mass protests have been held for weeks, initially over an extradition deal with mainland China, but now covering other issues on democracy in Hong Kong. It is the 7th consecutive weekend of mass demonstration, and tens of thousands are marching at the traditional protest point on Hong Kong Island. On sports news, defending champions St. Peter's College retained the President's Trophy School's knockout title by defeating a spirited Wesley College 18-15 at the Royal Sports Complex yesterday. Despite leading half-time by 7 points, Wesley College failed to capitalise as a stellar comeback from St. Peter's College got them losing the match by 3 points. Patriotic's score include 2 tries, 1 conversion and 2 penalties, while Wesley scored through 2 tries, 1 conversion and 1 penalty. And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.